Today I'm picking up on day 4 of the Suni Bell murder trial in Florida. Here's what we're talking about today. On August 22, 2021, a 4-year-old girl named Suni Bell was riding in a car in Tampa, Florida, with her mother, Mary Harrison, and her uncle, Willie Brown, in the back seat. The family was returning from a celebration of life event and headed to a get together. They got lost, pulled into a field, and then resumed driving. According to prosecutors, as they were driving, 3 other vehicles pulled up, followed them, and opened fire, discharging about 40 shots into the car into which Suni was riding. Suni Bell died of her injuries. Her mother and uncle survived. The defendants are 5 men, all indicted in connection with the shooting: Zavante Sampson, Quandarius, sometimes called Quadarius, Hammond, Jalen Bedward, James Denson, and Andrew Thompson. They face charges including the first-degree murder of Suni Bell and also the attempted first-degree murder of the other occupants in the vehicle who survived. So far, investigators have gathered a mountain of evidence, but not all of it is definitive. There's surveillance video from multiple cameras from businesses, including a Chevron gas station, captured footage of defendants getting into cars before the shooting. They also captured what investigators believe to be muzzle flashes. Then there are cell phone communication and phone records. Data extracted from phones, including Google searches. One search was 4-year-old shot in Tampa, video footage, photos, and messages. The data also included a photo of a semi-automatic pistol on one of the defendant's phone and a photo of a defendant wearing jeans matching those seen in the video from the gas station. How that's of great evidentiary value, it's difficult to determine given how ubiquitous jeans are. Then there's ballistics evidence. Investigators recovered some 45 cartridge casings from the crime scene, some 9mm and some 5.56mm. Two 9mm casings were matched to a Glock Taurus 9mm handgun that James Denson pawned. Some 5.56mm casings came from a firearm not yet recovered, but investigators found empty boxes of 5.56 ammo and 5.56 semi-automatic pistol in one of the defendants, Bedward's, car. Then there's vehicle and physical evidence, pictures of witnesses or suspects wearing similar clothing to what's seen in surveillance video, sandals matching shoes seen in the video, a box for an assault rifle found even though the rifle itself was not recovered. There's cell tower data placing defendants near key locations around the time of the shooting. Some defendants identified themselves in surveillance video. There are also jail calls in which one defendant, Hammond, allegedly asked his girlfriend to tell the police she picked him up from the gas station. And of course, that conflicts with other evidence. When are they ever going to learn that jail phone calls are monitored? It boggles the mind. What has been presented at trial so far has been the prosecution's case as it's being laid out. The prosecution paints this as a coordinated attack, not a random act, claiming that the 5 defendants armed themselves, got into vehicles, followed the victim's car, and fired into it. They're using video evidence, ballistics, phone data, cell tower data, and physical evidence to link up each defendant to actions leading up to or during the shooting. They've established that gun casings at the scene match to at least the gun pawned by Denson, or some of the 9mm, and found other evidence connected to the 5.56mm ammo. The defense, for its part, says that the evidence is circumstantial and there's no direct evidence tying any particular defendant to the fatal shot. For example, no eyewitnesses who saw the action or nobody knows who fired the gun that killed Suni. No DNA identified on the casings for some of the defendants. They point out uncertainties: which vehicle fired the shot, whether certain vehicles were involved, the fact that some weapons, like that 5.56 semi-automatic, have not been recovered, that some video evidence doesn't clearly identify certain people or actions. The defense also appears to challenge credibility of some witnesses or evidence, for example, what was observed versus what can be definitively shown, and whether some physical evidence was preserved or even collected properly. So here are the key uncertainties or disputed points. Exactly which defendant fired the fatal shot that killed Suni? This is not yet established one way or the other. The question you may have, however, is whether that's necessary. I don't have access to the pleadings, so I can't tell if they're charged with conspiracy or not, but obviously, if they were in this all together, when you get involved with other people and they kill somebody, you can still be liable for felony murder. Prosecutors have alleged that multiple defendants fired into the car. Defendants deny that. The role of each defendant, who drove, who was the passenger, who fired, if any, who planned, if any, are not known. And recovery of some evidence, certain weapons have not been found, only some matching ammo boxes. So that's where it stood as of today. Now we're going to pick up with some of the testimony that came in this morning.
Good morning, Officer Barreto. If you can please just reintroduce yourself to the jury and spell your last name again for the court.
Absolutely. I'm Officer Edward Barreto, last name spelled Barreto.
And Officer, we discussed earlier in your testimony that you went out to the scene and located an individual by the name of Willie Brown. Do you recall that?
Yes, I do.
All right. Officer, when you were at a scene of this nature or any scene that you respond to, do you have what's called body-worn camera?
Yes, we are assigned a body-worn camera.
And can you explain to the jury what that means and how it works?
Basically, it captures all interactions with law enforcement and the public whenever we're dealing with a law enforcement sensitive issue.
Okay. And does it turn on whenever you come into a situation where you're dealing with those kind of situations?
It'll sometimes automatically turn on with the activation of lights or siren, but we also manually turn it on whenever we come on scene.
Okay. Did you, in fact, in this particular case, when you arrived on scene, turn it on in this case?
I did.
Okay. And that body-worn camera showed your interaction with Willie Brown?
Yes, sir.
All right. Now, when you saw Willie, well, let me show you what's been marked as States Exhibits 57A through E, and I'm going to ask you to take a look at those pictures.
I do recognize them.
Okay. And are those, in fact, still shots taken from your body-worn camera that you were wearing on that particular night?
Yes, sir.
And do these fairly and accurately depict these particular still shots from that body-worn camera on that day?
Yes.
Judge, at this time, move to have States Exhibits 57A through E admitted into evidence.
Any objection?
No objection.
No, sir.
57A through E will be admitted.
All right. Now, officer, I'm going to show you 57A right here, and I'm going to kind of zoom in down to this particular location. Detective, was Mr. Brown wearing anything on his wrist?
It appears he's been wearing a watch.
Okay. And were you able to see it on that day? I'm now showing you 57B. Oops.
Yes.
Okay. And 57C.
Yes.
And that's what he was wearing when you encountered.
Correct.
And these photos are actually from the screenshot taken right after you came upon him at the scene.
Yes, sir.
Okay. And 57D. Again, just showing what's on his wrist at that particular moment, right?
Yes.
And finally, I guess 57E gives a little more, you can see the face of, that's it right there on his wrist, right?
Yes, sir.
And you observed that night?
Yes.
Okay. I do not have any further questions of Officer Barreto, Judge.
Any cross?
No, on behalf of Mr. Danton.
Yes, sir.
No, sir, on behalf of the officer.
All right, may this witness be excused.
Yes, Your Honor.
Thank you, officer. You're free to go.
Thank you, Your Honor.
As I've often said, a lot of the process involved in a prosecution case is just flat boring. Now, if you are looking for me to explain what that 5 minutes of testimony was about, I can't do it. I suspect that there is something about Willie Brown's ring that will come into play at some point later in the trial. But let's look at what he did here. First, he laid the foundation. Do you wear a body camera? Yes, I do. Second, he said, are these accurate and, appropriate images derived from your body camera? And he looked at them and said, yes, they are. And then he asked him, do they accurately portray what you saw? And he said, yes. So then he moves to admit them. That's how you get an item of evidence, particularly a photograph, admitted into evidence. And that's pretty much the same in almost every court in the country. What is interesting about this is that nobody offered to explain what the importance of that is, and I certainly can't figure it out from the context of what went on.
Good morning, sir. Can you hear me okay?
Yes, good morning.
Good morning. Can you please state your name and spell it for the jury?
My name is James Kwong. James spells James. Kwong spells Kwong.
Were you previously employed with the Florida Department of Law Enforcement?
Yes, I was.
And in what capacity?
I was a senior crime laboratory analyst assigned to the firearms section.
How long were you working with FDLE?
Approximately 19 years.
And when did you stop working with FDLE?
December 2024.
So recently.
Yes.
Were you working or still employed there in the firearms section in August of 2021?
Yes, I was.
And between then and the date of your retirement, had you worked up cases related to firearms
Yes.
and ballistics analysis?
Yes.
Can you tell the jury what your educational background is?
I have a Bachelor of Science degree in Mechanical Engineering and Technology from Temple University. Temple spells Temple. Temple University in the city of Philadelphia.
I'm going to cut out the uninteresting part where he talks about every book he ever read, every article he ever wrote, and all of the things that he went through to get the laboratory certified. That really doesn't do anything but buttress his credentials, and I don't think juries really pay very much attention to that. But at the end of it, she asked him this question.
In my 25 years of career in this field, I have testified as an expert in the firearms identification approximately 233 times.
At this time, Your Honor, the state would tender the witness.
Any questions from any of the attorneys?
No questions, Your Honor. No question. No questions, Your Honor.
Thank you. You may continue.
So the court accepts him as an expert, and then there's a fairly long diatribe about other things that are not particularly important in the context of the case. And then we get into something that actually matters.
Say you are in a controlled environment like your lab, for example. What happens if you are test firing a weapon with the projectile after it's fired, and what happens with the cartridge case?
Well, depends on the type of action, the type of guns that was fired. If this is a semi-automatic pistol, the pistol is automatically eject. It is fire cartridge cases eject from the gun.
And if it's a revolver, for example, the other option?
A revolver do not eject the cartridge case out of the revolver after you fire that, because the cartridge or the ammunition is loaded in the chamber of a cylinder. After you fire that cartridge case stays in the chamber of the cylinder. So when you see cartridge cases recover from a crime scene, that is an indicative to a semi-automatic type of firearms and not a revolver.
And speaking specifically about semi-automatic firearms at this point, talk to me about what happens with the cartridge case from that, if any specificity can be given when it's fired.
A semi-automatic pistols utilize a device called a magazine. You load the ammunition into the magazine. Then you insert inside the magazine housing of the pistol. You pull the slide to the rear, let go of the slide, and the slide will travel forward under spring pressure. As the slide travels forward, it strips a cartridge from the top of the magazine and insert that into the chamber. If the safety is off, all you have to do is pull the trigger. Bang! Once it fires, the cartridge case automatically eject out of the pistol. It's about 90% of the semi-automatic pistols eject to the right and slightly to the rear.
When you are talking about the percentage of where they eject to, is that in a controlled environment where the cartridge case would eject?
Yes, in a controlled environments, yes, it is pretty predictable where they are going to be landed.
And predictable to what degree? Is there like, would you say within 5 feet, 10 feet? Are you able to say typically in a controlled environment, if you fire semi-automatic, where that casing would land?
Based on all my experience within the last 25 years shooting guns, inside a shooting range, in general, for handguns, the cartridge case will land between 0 to 15 feet. For a long gun, such as a rifle, it will go further.
And are there factors that can be considered regarding where the cartridge casing will be located when the firearm is discharged?
Yes, it depends on the ground. For example, if the cartridge case is landed on grass, it's pretty much stay where it is. If it's landed on the street or on the concrete or the sidewalks, it will bounce a few times and then it roll a little bit and then come to a stop.
I've rarely heard any expert describe the process of how a semi-automatic firearm works better than Mr. Kwong here. He has done an excellent job of setting out how that happens. Apparently, they are going to try to take a look at where people were sitting in the car and where the shells landed and make some kind of inference based on that. But you can see that it takes a long, long time to get to the point when you're dealing with an expert. And that's what's going on here. It's taking her time because she has to go very laboriously through each of these steps and lay out what's happened and not leave any room for doubt or leave room for cross-examination where the defense attorney gets up and says, "She didn't ask you about this, did she?" So you have to believe that when they're going this slowly, they're going that slowly for a reason.
Is there a difference in the muzzle flash that you can see visually or the blast that you can hear from a 9mm to, say, a 5.56 or 2.23 rifle round?
Yes. Now, during daytime, you might not be able to see the muzzle flash, but you definitely could hear the muzzle blast. At nighttime, you're going to see the muzzle flash very well, as well as the muzzle blast. Now, for a 2.23 or 5.56 millimeter, the rifle, it's going to be a lot louder, a lot brighter than a 9mm.
And you say brighter, is that the muzzle flash is brighter?
Yeah, the muzzle flash.
And when you're using the term brighter, is that visually a bigger muzzle flash that we see than a 9?
Yes.
Okay.
Now, why would they be interested in this? Because you remember I told you there is some concern about where people were sitting in the car and muzzle flashes and whether they were firing from the car, into the car, all of that kind of thing. She's trying to lay the framework here essentially to help the jury understand how sometimes muzzle flashes can be seen and sometimes they cannot. Meaning it's far more likely that the muzzle flash from a 5.56 millimeter rifle would be much brighter and much easier to see than the muzzle flash from a 9 millimeter pistol. So that's pretty much where this expert went with his testimony. It went on much longer than that, but I wanted to give you I wanted you to have an understanding of why it takes so long to get to the point with experts, because again, it takes forever sometimes to get to some of these more important parts of the actual testimony. And sadly, that's just a cost of doing business when you're in a criminal trial. If you are going to be a juror in one of these trials, you had best bring no dos, because some of this stuff could really put you in a coma. Thanks for watching. I appreciate you being here today. If you have the opportunity today, try to do one kind thing to help somebody else. Any kind thing will do. Buy somebody a Coke, get them a cup of coffee, anything that makes their day better. That would be a way to help make the world a better place. Because after all, isn't that what we're all after? Now, YouTube has a few things that they think you might be interested in, and they're going to be showing you that right up there.